Welcome, guys and geeks, to the MCU Chronological Timeline 6.5.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
And that's a totally serious question. This video comprises the entire live-action Marvel Cinematic Universe, including all shows, and gets into spoiler territory. If you would like to watch the MCU Timeline film-only edition with minimal spoilers, I recommend clicking that card to watch version 6.0. This timeline is meant to be a chronological viewing order. While some films and shows overlap, this timeline will generalize a title's given dates to determine whether or not it takes place before or after other titles in the list, giving primary weight to a title's third act or climax. This means we won't be breaking up the films or shows if they bounce around between different years. Also, please note most of the mid and post-credit scenes take place during different time periods than the films they're attached to, and won't be used in determining when a film occurs. I'm looking at you, Doctor Strange. This will also include shows that have been cancelled, and they'll remain on this timeline until officially deemed non-canonical. Let's begin. Captain America, the first Avenger, sets the backdrop to Earth 616 and the Marvel Cinematic Universe as the first film to introduce superheroes to the world, at least in the modern epic, and ushers in a new age for mankind. Beginning at the height of America's involvement in World War II, the first Avenger shows the birth of a superhero, one whose moral compass and character are just as impressive as his enhanced superhuman abilities. Taking place between 1942 and 1945, as well as a short stint in 2011, this is undoubtedly the first title in our list. Steve Goes Under the Arctic in March of 1945.
You know, I still don't know how to dance.
The second title should definitely be Agent Carter Season 1, which follows the love interest of Steve Rogers in Peggy Carter. This takes place in fall 1946, a year after the end of the first Avenger. Agent Carter Season 2 continues Peggy's fight against new atomic age threats as she moves from New York to Los Angeles in July of 1947. The Marvel one-shot Agent Carter has been retconned to occur after the events of the first two seasons, and sees the start of what is to become S.H.I.E.L.D. The next film, Captain Marvel, is one of the more recent films in the series, though its chronological placement is one of the earliest on the timeline. Here we follow a Kree-trained warrior named Vers to Earth in search of several shape-shifting refugees known as the Skrull in 1995, only to discover her terrestrial origins as the Air Force pilot Carol Danvers.
I didn't know.
Along the way, she befriends a young Nick Fury and discovers the incredible extents of her power. Strongest Avenger? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. We push forward into 2008 with the film that started it all, Iron Man. Tony Stark, billionaire weapons dealer for the US government and CEO of Stark Industries, has a change of heart after being kidnapped by terrorists using his own weapons against him. Upon discovering shrapnel embedded in his chest and inching closer to his heart, he finds a new way to power not only him, but a means for his escape and the subsequent line of suits that would identify him as Iron Man.
I am Iron Man.
Iron Man 2 picks up 6 months after Ivan Vanko completes his response to the Iron Man armor. But here's where some may take offense at our placement on the timeline. Instead of retconning Iron Man to occur later than 2008, as this film would suggest is necessary, we've kept it where it is due to later retcons in the series, and have subsequently moved Iron Man 2 as occurring in 2011. While we won't get into too much detail as to why this is necessary here, please note that Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, and Thor run semi-concurrently. If you want more information, we've compiled an incredibly in-depth look at each film in the timeline in this 20-part video series known as When Does the MCU Take Place? It explains everything. We'll link it in the description down below, but for now, let's get back to putting titles on this list. The Incredible Hulk is perhaps the most retconned film in the MCU, having replaced both the lead actor in the role of the Hulk, as well as completely ignoring its own timeline retroactively. The timeline totally forgets about Emil Blonsky's abomination altogether.
Give me a real fight!
Should they bring him back? Let me know your thoughts. The film makes it very clear on multiple occasions that it occurs in May of 2007, 5 years after Bruce Banner subjects himself to gamma radiation and develops his alter ego, the Hulk. Because of its involvement with Fury's Big Week, a week-long period which also encompasses Iron Man 2 and Thor, the film has been moved up to May and early June 2011. In the short Marvel one-shot, a funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer. Coulson stops a gas station robbery on his way to New Mexico. Thor reintroduces the Asgardians onto Midgard, or Earth, in the modern era, having been away long enough for the Asgardians to fade away into Norse myth. After being stripped of his titles and rank, Thor must prove to himself and his king that he is again worthy to possess the powers once bestowed to him and enhanced by his hammer Mjolnir.
The burden of the throne has fallen to me now.
His adopted brother, Loki, uses Thor's weakened state to take control of Asgard. Thor occurs in 2011, beginning shortly after Iron Man 2 and The Incredible Hulk. In the Marvel one-shot The Consultant, Coulson and Jasper Sitwell conspire to keep Emil Blonsky's Abomination out of the Avengers Initiative. This actually occurs before the mid-credit scene in The Incredible Hulk.
Someone who will offend the general to his very core.
You're talking about the
No, I'm not.
You just described him to a T.
I'm telling you right now, stop it. I am not calling the consultant.
But we'll place it here so as not to break that film up. There was an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people to see if they could become something more. And they certainly did with Marvel's The Avengers. Set almost 1 year after Fury's big week, the Avengers team up to stop a global threat of invasion in 2012 crafted by Thor's brother Loki. The film would not only go on to transform and be referenced by future MCU films, but became hugely influential in how Hollywood has approached franchises in the years since.
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
While Loki and the Chitauri army are the immediate threat, we later find that Thanos was behind the invasion all along. If you're enjoying this video that you probably didn't realize took months of our time to create, let us know by doing some combination of these 4 actions. Heimdall is watching. In the Marvel one-shot, Item 47, we find that Chitauri weaponry is being found and utilized by amateur bank robbers shortly after the events of the Avengers. Iron Man 3 sees individuals from Tony's past coming back to haunt him as Aldrich Killian and Maya Hansen introduce the world to the Extremis Project.
I'm not sure if you can tell, but at this moment the body is trying to decide whether to accept Extremis or just give up.
We're also introduced to someone claiming to be the Mandarin, but we won't see the true Mandarin until Phase 4. This is an interesting film to try and fit into the timeline as it features dates that occur after the events of Thor: The Dark World, but is generally believed to occur before the Dark World. It's confusing, we break it down in this video right there. Ultimately, the film must occur a year prior to this date on this newspaper, during Christmas 2012. In the Marvel one-shot, All Hail the King, we regroup with Trevor Slattery to determine if he truly knows anything more about the Mandarin, and or the Ten Rings organization. This occurs, likely, a few months after Iron Man 3. Now we begin the introduction of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as we dive into Season 1. Because of the show's long 22-episode format and the apparent time breaks within each season, we can place most of the show with some certainty, especially in its earlier seasons.
Okay, there are 2 ways we can do this.
Oh, it's one of them the easy way.
No.
No.
The first 7 episodes introduce us to the S.H.I.E.L.D. team. Thor: The Dark World naturally comes next.
You said you were coming back.
I know, but the Bifrost was destroyed.
But I saw you on TV. You were in New York.
Every 5,000 years, the convergence of the 9 realms opens a portal between worlds, and Malekith uses it to unleash the power of the Ether to transform the universe back into eternal darkness. The convergence occurs on November 17th, 2013. Is this the worst film in the timeline? I personally enjoy it. Episodes 8 through 16 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 arrive next, with events in Episode 8 picking up after The Dark World, and events in Episode 16 leading into The Winter Soldier. With Captain America: The Winter Soldier, we find ourselves in the summer of 2014.
You need to keep both eyes open.
Adapting to life in the 21st century, Steve Rogers, along with Natasha Romanoff, find themselves on the run from a rogue cell that's taken over S.H.I.E.L.D. in Hydra, and a brand new threat arrives from Steve's past, as we discover Bucky has become the Winter Soldier. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1, Episodes 17 through 22 deal directly with the massive curveball of Hydra infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D.
Now, I'll be unstoppable.
Hey guys! I found it!
Next up, we leave Earth to explore the cosmic side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Guardians of the Galaxy takes place 26 years after Peter Quill, a young boy from Missouri, is abducted in 1988. Here Peter, now going by the moniker of Star-Lord, must team up with other galactic misfits to take down the Kree radical Ronan the Accuser. We're also introduced to Thanos' family in Gamora and Nebula. Without further information, we can only assume that Guardians of the Galaxy occurs sometime during the summer of 2014, shortly after the Winter Soldier.
We are Groot.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 occurs only a few short months after the first film, and considering there are no other films that arrive concurrently between the two, they'll show up side by side on our timeline. A mysterious entity introduces himself to Peter as Ego, his father, who helps unlock Peter's true potential. But not all is as it seems, as being half Celestial has its drawbacks.
You people have issues.
Well, of course I have issues. That's my freaking father!
This film likely occurs mid to late fall 2014. Daredevil Season 1 ushers in the Netflix heroes into the MCU, as Matt Murdock chooses a life of defending law by day and fighting crime by night. Wilson Fisk is perhaps the best villain we ever received with any of the Marvel TV shows, and is up there with the top MCU villains in general. With Jessica Jones Season 1, we close out 2014 with Jessica going up against her prior abuser, Kilgrave, in one of the MCU's most chilling chapters.
You a PI?
I'm just trying to make a living, you know, booze costs money. Usually.
We're also introduced to Luke Cage. Cloak and Dagger Season 1, while arriving in 2018, actually takes place 8 years after 2007, which makes it early 2015. Tyrone and Tandy become intertwined with powers of light and darkness, and must band together to take down the evil corporate entity, Roxxon.
In this day and age, you need to keep up with the Joneses, as well as the Starks and the Rands.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, Episodes 1 through 19 is a series of episodes we've decided to consolidate to early 2015, considering even the time jumps between episodes never occur over long periods of time, and it doesn't feel appropriate to split them up.
We finally get to find out what we become.
That said, Episode 19 ties directly into Avengers Age of Ultron. The Avengers must team up again in Avengers Age of Ultron as Tony and Bruce unintentionally unleash a dangerous artificially intelligent life form into the world. Ultron is intent on making the world a better place, a place run by machines who aren't constrained by human emotion. The film ends with the unfortunate destruction of Sokovia.
The beauty of it. The inevitability. You rise, only to fall.
This event takes place in the summer of 2015, as becomes evident by other titles in the series. The final 3 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, 20 through 22, follow events after the Battle of Sokovia. We have the first season of WHiH Newsfront, a YouTube series of 5 episodes that chronicles the media coverage post-Sokovia.
Now we revisit a story from a few years back, the case of cybercriminal and self-proclaimed whistleblower Scott Lang.
This was released on YouTube originally, but has since been removed. We've re-uploaded it right here, and we've left it unmonetized because we don't technically own it. The next film you'll want to watch is Ant-Man, which takes place some short months later. Scott Lang is released from a 3-year prison sentence on July 17, 2015. And after a few months of trying to make a living and failing to pay child support, he reverts back to his old ways of burglary, only to find a dusty old suit that happens to be able to make him shrink down to the size of an ant. We're also introduced to the Quantum Realm, which is highly important to the future of the MCU, especially in Phase 3.
You would enter a reality where all concepts of time and space and relevance.
The film's climax occurs on October 9th, 2015. Simmons is trapped in the Monolith world in the first half of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3, Episodes 1 through 10, shortly after Ant-Man. Daredevil Season 2 is next up, as we're introduced to the Punisher. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3, Episodes 11 through 19 technically run concurrently to both Daredevil Season 2 and Luke Cage Season 1.
But I appreciate your help.
Does that mean you're reauthorizing S.H.I.E.L.D.?
The public has a short memory, but not that short.
Luke Cage Season 1 follows Luke as he becomes the hero that Harlem needs, some 4 years after Hulk rampaged through it. Luke faces off against both Cottonmouth and Diamondback in this season.
Everybody wants to be the king.
Bridget O'Reilly returns to Cloak and Dagger Season 2 alongside Mayhem, her doppelganger. It follows shortly after Luke Cage Season 1 and actually discusses some of the events outlined at the end of Luke Cage's first season. This show brings us into 2016.
Luke Cage in Harlem Rumble by Karen Page.
Though please bear in mind that the recent news that Cloak and Dagger and the Runaways team are teaming up in Runaways Season 3 might mean that they are pushing the timeline for the entire Cloak and Dagger series up 2 years, but that's not been determined yet. We'll keep it where it is for now. Iron Fist Season 1 occurs in February 2016 as Danny Rand returns to New York after being presumed dead for over 15 years, and he struggles to balance whether or not his duties to his family's legacy are more important than who he is as the Iron Fist. Defender Season 1 picks up just a short month or so after Iron Fist and follows the entire Netflix Marvel cast except the Punisher, as they collectively take down the Hand organization from destroying New York City. They really should have phoned in some Avengers for this one. Season 2 of WHiH Newsfront was released between April and May 2016, but likely occurs in early to late March. It leads directly into the Lagos incident of Captain America Civil War. Again, we'll link all parts to the Newsfront series in the description. Oh, you like my MCU Timeline shirt? Well, you can grab yours now in our merch store linked just below this video, and you'll help support the production of more content just like this. The Avengers team find themselves divided on two differing sides of a controversial new bill known as the Sokovia Accords, which effectively limits their freedom to protect citizens across sovereign borders due to damage they may or may not have been responsible for.
This isn't going to change what happened. I don't care. He killed my mom.
Captain America Civil War's climax occurs within the first week of April 2016 and sees the Avengers team split down the middle. Please note that while many films occur in 2016, there is a fair amount of overlapping. Again, for much more detail, please see our When Does the MCU Timeline Take Place series. Black Panther picks up a week after King T'Chaka is killed in a terrorist attack that occurred during Civil War's time frame. The film follows T'Challa as he undergoes the coronation ritual upon arriving back in his country of Wakanda, an African utopia hidden away from the rest of the world. Along the way, he is challenged for the throne by Eric Killmonger, whose ultimate goal is to help aid those of African descent by arming them with Wakandan technology so they can overthrow their governments.
Your weapons.
Our weapons will not be used to wage war on the world.
The film occurs as early as the second week of April and spans only a few days. Let's close out Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3 with episodes 20 through 22, which follows shortly after the events of Civil War. You'd think that with almost a decade of films under their belt at this point, the dates would just slide right in, right? Well, then they go and release Spider-Man Homecoming. A great film which introduces one of the Marvel's most popular heroes and one of the MCU's most personable villains to date in The Vulture, but a film that also boasts the worst timeline fumbles in the entirety of the MCU.
Time to go home, Pete. I'm trying to save you!
Almost every date, time, and reference to season is contradicted by other films in the MCU, or by Homecoming itself. This video right here explains how poorly it fits into the MCU timeline. A year after his introduction in Daredevil Season 2, we join the Punisher in the first season of his spin-off show, which ends late November 2016. Doctor Strange comes next on our timeline, though, like we mentioned earlier, there's some overlap with other films in 2016. In fact, Doctor Strange begins before even Civil War. Revolving around Stephen Strange getting into an accident and trying anything to get the proper use of his hands back, he eventually finds himself in Camartage, under the tutelage of the Ancient One, as he learns the mystical arts and becomes the Doctor Strange we know and love.
You'd think after all this time I'd be ready. But look at me, stretching one moment out into 1,000, just so that I can watch the snow.
The climax occurs at the tail end of 2016, and the mid- and post-credits scenes occur in 2017, once Stephen apparently feels proficient enough to protect the Eye of Agamotto from his sanctuary in New York City. The beginning and end of the Slingshot web series takes place after Episode 8 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, but the majority of the show occurs before the start of the season.
I heard Mace was calling you in. You're signing the Sokovia Accords. It's a big step.
Let's not break it up though, as it would ruin the flow of the miniseries. This brings us into 2017. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4 comes next and will keep the entire season together. This includes the Ghost Rider, Agents of Hydra, and LMD arcs. Inhumans Season 1 arrives after both the Terrigenesis event and the Inhuman Registration Act that followed the Sokovia Accords. Jessica Jones Season 2 falls in step at about May 2017, 17 years after the accident that took the lives of Jessica's family. But it turns out that not the entire family was taken, as Jessica learns that her mother is still out there. In Luke Cage Season 2, Luke meets his match in Bushmaster, but perhaps his most noteworthy foe is none other than the owner of Harlem's Paradise, Mariah Dillard.
I'm Detective Misty Knight, and that's a search warrant. You put a bounty out on Mariah Dillard.
Stokes. Mariah Stokes.
This occurs in August 2017. While the first handful of episodes in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5 occur over 90 years in the far-flung future, we'll adhere to the characters' relative timelines, which would occur chronologically next on the timeline.
That doesn't make sense. How long ago did they build this place, and when did you first come here?
I don't know. They built it 90-some-odd years ago minimum.
Thor Ragnarok sees the return of Thor's deranged older sister, Hela, and upon facing off against her in the Bifrost, gets transported to the alien world of Sakaar, where he meets an old friend from work.
I wouldn't worry, brother. I feel like everything's gonna work out fine.
Despite what the mid-credits scene would have you believe, Thor Ragnarok does not take place directly before Infinity War. There is about a 5 to 7 month gap between the film's main events and the scene in question. The film likely takes place mostly during fall 2017. Iron Fist Season 2 arrives next in or around November 2017. This season sees Danny lose his grasp on the Iron Fist mantle, and is a marked improvement, in some ways, to the first season. Moving on to Daredevil Season 3, wherein we're introduced to the Netflix iteration of Bullseye.
Who are you? I'm Daredevil.
This occurs late in 2017, shortly after Iron Fist. We're pushing Runaways Season 1 up a bit from our last timeline, as it does take place over the winter holiday seasons.
We're a family.
We're a family. And we'll fight you if we have to!
Though there is little outward evidence to that effect. In Runaways Season 2, we finally see the cast doing what they were cast to do, running away. Beginning just a day after the end of the first season and moving into 2018, it wouldn't make sense to break up these two seasons. The Punisher Season 2 occurs over a year after the first season and picks up after Daredevil Season 3, which is confirmed by the personal arc of Karen Page. Jessica Jones Season 3 is the last Marvel Netflix show on our list, and occurs just a short month or so before the snap. Back in the presumed normal timeline, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5, episodes 11 through 18 fall into step right here. Ant-Man and the Wasp, however, occurs mid to April 2018. The film takes place a little over 2 years after Civil War, and this is notable as Scott Lang's just about to end his probation period for events he aided in said film. He and Hope become entangled in a quantum heist as Hank Pym attempts to bring Janet back from, well, quantum entanglement. Popular theory holds that this film occurs concurrently to Infinity War, and we've even mentioned that on occasion here. But aside from the mid-credits scene wherein we see the effects of the snap, there's no evidence that that is the case. Between the climax and the mid-credits scene is at least a week-long resolution period. For more info, click that card. The final 4 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5, episodes 19 through 22 lead into the events of Infinity War, with references to Thanos, the Avengers, and even the aliens in New York.
Gotta say, it's pretty magical.
These episodes are concurrent to the events in Infinity War. Avengers Infinity War occurs over 3 days, with the climactic snap being, at the earliest, on or after April 19th, 2018. The latest date would probably be June 3rd. The film sees the Mad Titan Thanos attempt to rid half the universe of life by collecting all 6 Infinity Stones, a threat even the Avengers will have trouble defending against.
You should have gone for the head.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6 will just have to go here until they explain themselves. It is supposedly a year after the snap, but there's no reference to it in the slightest, and nobody appears affected. This may be the last iteration of this timeline where these shows are all considered canon, unless something further is clarified. Avengers Endgame, the sequel to Infinity War, follows 5 years after the snap in the previous film, as the Avengers need to regroup to take Thanos down for good. But that won't be as easy as it sounds. Endgame bounces around on the timeline, but the primary time period is a bit over 5 years after Avengers Infinity War, at about October 2023.
Avengers!
Assemble.
Spider-Man Far From Home is the latest film on our timeline, taking place 8 months after what is known as the blip from Endgame and the death of Tony Stark. Peter Parker and friends go on an end-of-the-year trip to Europe. Unfortunately for him, it won't be much of a vacation, as everywhere he goes happens to be attacked by giant elemental monsters. This movie takes place in late June, early July 2024. There is one major inconsistency, and that's the inclusion of the Signal Lights Festival, which happens in October.
Stark was right. You do deserve that.
Peter claims that he is still 16 in this film, meaning he's been 16 for over 18 months. But if his birthday is August 10th and he was blipped back in October, he wouldn't count that year, as he's only ever experienced 16 August 10ths. So that adds up. I need to take this time to thank each and every one of you for watching up to this point. But more importantly, I need to thank our patrons who help us out each and every month. They make videos like this possible, especially when we're demonetized for using copyrighted content. I'm truly humbled that they enjoy our content enough to continuously help us out monetarily, even if it's just $1 a month. Thank you guys. If you'd like to join our Patreon, we'll link it in the description below. Quick! It is your last chance. If you enjoyed this video and you want to let us know, please do some combination of these 4 actions. If you choose to subscribe to our channel, that would make my day. Please let me know your thoughts about this video and the timeline in general. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? I want to hear your thoughts. If you've made it this far and you're not satiated with Marvel timeline information, please click here and watch this especially crafted playlist called When Does the MCU Take Place?, which is an in-depth look at each film in the timeline. But if you're feeling feisty and you want a change of pace, I recommend clicking right here where I introduce you to the highest rated book of all time and let you know how you can get it free today. Thanks guys. Have a good one.